The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystal and floating platforms. Representatives from 200 species filled the space, their forms ranging from gaseous clouds to towering crystalline beings. At the center stood Ambassador Chen Wei, human woman who looked impossibly small in this vast assembly. Her hands were steady, but her heart raced. Today would determine Earth's future among the stars. High Chancellor Zexter of the Vrexian Empire rose from his platform. His species resembled massive reptiles covered in metallic scales that gleamed under the chamber's artificial light. When he spoke, his voice boomed through translation devices embedded in every seat. Members of the Council, the evidence is clear. The humans have stolen our jump drive technology. What took our civilization 5,000 years to develop, they claim to have created in mere decades. This is impossible. This is theft. Holographic displays materialize above the chamber floor, showing human ships equipped with advanced propulsion systems. The images rotated slowly, highlighting similarities to Vrexian designs. Ambassador Chen stepped forward. Honored council members, humanity did not steal anything. Our scientists studied publicly available research from the Galactic Science Repository. We combined those principles with our own mathematical models and silence. Zexter's tail slammed against his platform. Your species has been in space for barely 2 centuries. You expect us to believe you achieved what ancient civilizations could not? The Korthak speaker, an elderly being whose species had founded the council 10,000 years ago, raised one withered hand. The chamber fell silent. His species looked like walking trees, their bark-like skin covered in glowing symbols that shifted with their thoughts. Ambassador Chen, the speaker's voice was soft but carried weight. Your explanation strains credibility. How can a young species advance so quickly without assistance or theft? Chen looked around the chamber. Most faces showed skepticism. Some showed outright hostility. Only a few smaller species representatives seemed uncertain. Because humans are good at one thing, Chen said quietly. We adapt, we learn. We take existing ideas and find new ways to use them. That's not theft. That's innovation. A rippling laugh spread through the chamber. The Vrexian Chancellor stepped closer to Chen's platform. Innovation. Your species still fights wars among yourselves. You polluted your own planet before reaching the stars. You are children playing with technology you don't understand. He turned to address the council. I propose immediate sanctions. A complete trade embargo. Technology access revoked. Earth will be isolated until they surrender their stolen jump drives and submit to inspection. The Dalthene representative, a species that resembled floating jellyfish, spoke up. Is that not too harsh? Perhaps we could. The Vrexian Empire provides 30% of the Council's defense fleet. Zexter interrupted. We protect the trade routes. We maintain order. If the Council will not act decisively, we must question the value of this assembly. The threat was clear. Without Vrexian military support, smaller species would be vulnerable to pirates and rogue factions. The Korthak speaker closed his eyes. His bark creaked as he shifted position. We will vote. All in favor of imposing sanctions on Earth? Chen watched as platform after platform lit up with affirmative votes. Green light spread across the chamber like a disease. The smaller species she had hoped might support humanity voted with the majority. No one wanted to anger the Vrexians. The measure passes unanimously, the speaker announced. Earth will face complete isolation effective immediately. But Zexter wasn't finished. He moved to the center of the chamber, his massive form casting shadows across the platforms. Sanctions are not enough. The humans have already demonstrated their disregard for galactic law. I propose a second measure, complete disarmament of Earth's fleet. All military vessels must be surrendered within 30 days, or we will consider it an act of war. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even some of the Vrexian allies seemed shocked by this escalation. Ambassador Chen felt cold anger building in her chest. She had come here hoping for justice, for fairness. Instead, she saw a rigged system designed to keep powerful species in control and younger ones in their place. You want to leave us defenseless? Chen said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "This isn't about justice. This is about eliminating competition." "You dare accuse this council?" Zexler began. Interrupted no one, Chen interrupted. "I'm simply stating facts. But let me give you all a fact about humans that you clearly don't understand." She turned slowly, making eye contact with as many representatives as possible. Throughout our history, empires have made the same mistake. They've looked at humans and seen primitive beings who should be easy to control. They've backed us into corners and expected us to surrender. Do you know what happened to those empires? The chamber was silent. "They don't exist anymore," Chen continued. "Not because we destroyed them through war, though we've won those too. They fell because they underestimated what humans do when you take away our choices. We adapt, we innovate, we survive, and we remember." "Remove her," the speaker ordered quietly. Security drones moved toward Chen's platform. She made no resistance as they escorted her toward the exit. But at the threshold, she turned back one final time. "You're making the same mistake every empire before you has made. You're underestimating what humans do when you back them into a corner. I hope you remember this moment, because we will." The doors sealed behind her with a hiss of pressurized air. In the chamber, the council proceeded to vote on disarmament. Again, the measure passed with overwhelming support. The Vrexian chancellor smiled, his sharp teeth glinting. But the Dalthene representative floated silently to the side, troubled by the human's final words. They had sounded less like a threat and more like a warning. A warning that would prove prophetic. Part 2. The blockade 6 months had passed since the council's vote. The Sol system was now a prison. Vrexian warships formed a perfect sphere around Earth's home system, their weapons constantly scanning for any ship attempting to break through. Admiral Kreshner commanded the blockade from his flagship, the Inevitable Justice. His orders were simple: nothing in, nothing out. "Another day, another human attempt," his tactical officer reported. Small freighter approaching from the asteroid belt. "Outdated model. No weapons detected." Kreshner didn't even look up from his reports. "Destroy it." "Sir, they're broadcasting a distress signal. Medical emergency. They claim to be carrying medicine to Mars colony." "Destroy it," Kreshner repeated. "The Council's orders are absolute. No exceptions." The tactical officer hesitated, then entered the command. Plasma cannons charged and fired. The small human ship exploded in a flash of light and debris. It was the 47th vessel blockade had destroyed this month. On Mars, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo received the news while checking inventory in the colony's medical center. Another supply ship lost. Another dozen people who wouldn't receive treatment in time. She looked at the rows of empty shelves where medicine should be. The colony had maybe 3 weeks of supplies left. After that, people would start dying. Dr. Okonkwo. A young nurse stood in the doorway, her face pale. "The Henderson child. His condition is getting worse. We need the antibiotics that were on that ship." Sarah closed her eyes. The Henderson child was 7 years old. A simple bacterial infection that would be cured easily with proper medicine. But without it, "Keep him comfortable," Sarah said quietly. I'll find something." But they both knew there was nothing to find. That night, Sarah received an encrypted message on her personal device. The sender was anonymous, but the contents made her sit up straight. Asterisk captain needed for supply run. Dangerous route. Guaranteed delivery. Reply if interested. Asterisk. Sarah had been a freighter pilot before becoming a doctor. She understood what dangerous route meant. It meant running the blockade. It meant probable death. She thought about the Henderson child. She thought about the dozens of other patients running out of medicine. She typed her reply. Asterisk, I'm in. 2 days later, Sarah found herself in the cockpit of a ship called the Persistence Asterisk. The vessel was ancient by galactic standards, a retrofitted cargo hauler that should have been scrapped decades ago. But humans had learned to keep old things running. Her co-pilot was a young man named Marcus. He had the nervous energy of someone who had done this before and survived. "You understand the plan?" Marcus asked as they prepared for departure. "We're going to navigate through the Trojan asteroid field. Use gravitational assists from 3 different rocks. Then micro-jump through a gap in the blockade that should exist for exactly 8 seconds. And if our calculations are off by even a fraction, Sarah checked her harness. Then we become another debris cloud. Just making sure you understand. Marcus grinned. Ready? The Persistence launched from a hidden base inside a hollowed asteroid. Within minutes, Rexian sensors detected them. Human vessel. This is Rexian Blockade Command. You were ordered to stop your engines and prepare to be destroyed. Sarah ignored the message and dove into the asteroid field. What happened next would have been impossible for any other species. The asteroids in this field moved in chaotic patterns, influenced by Jupiter's massive gravity and the gravitational wells of other large rocks. Navigating through them required split-second decisions and constant course corrections. Sarah's hands moved across the controls like she was playing an instrument. The Persistence twisted and rolled, using momentum from one asteroid to slingshot toward another. When Virexian fighters tried to follow, they were forced to slow down and use careful, programmed approaches. Humans had no such limitations. Sarah flew by instinct and calculation, doing things the ship's computer warned were suicidal. 3 Virexian fighters pursuing, Marcus called out. They're keeping distance, but matching our course. They won't follow where we're going next, Sarah said. She aimed the Persistence directly at a massive, rotating asteroid. The Virexian fighters pulled back, assuming the humans would veer away at the last moment. They didn't. Sarah fired the thrusters at the precise instant, using the asteroid's rotation to whip the ship around its surface like a stone in a sling. The G-forces should have crushed them, but the ship's reinforced gravity compensators held. They shot out the other side, going 3 times faster than before. The Virexian fighters were kilometers behind, their pilots reporting back that the humans had done something impossible. Micro-jump in 5 seconds, Marcus counted down. 3, 2, 1. Now, the Persistence flickered out of normal space for less than a second. When it reappeared, they were past the blockade, heading toward Mars at full speed. Behind them, Admiral Kreshner stared at his tactical display in disbelief. How did they calculate that jump? The margins were impossible. Any error and they would have materialized inside solid matter. His tactical officer pulled up recordings of the escape. Sir, I've analyzed their route. The maneuvers they performed, our ships cannot do this. The risk calculations show a 98% probability of failure. Then how did they succeed? I don't know, sir. But this is the 14th successful run this week. Different ships, different routes, but all equally impossible. Kreshner felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: doubt. The humans were supposed to be primitive. Their technology was inferior. Their ships were outdated. By every logical measure, the blockade should be working perfectly. But somehow, these desperate humans and their old ships were succeeding where advanced civilizations would fail. On Mars. Sarah delivered her cargo to cheering colonists. The Henderson child received his medicine and would make a full recovery as she prepared for another run. Sarah recorded a message to be sent on underground channels to every human colony and ship. The Virexians think their blockade is perfect because it would stop any logical species. But we're not logical. We're desperate. We're creative. And we're really, really good at doing things that should be impossible. Keep flying. Keep fighting. They can't stop all of us. In the Galactic Council chambers, junior members were starting to notice something troubling. The blockade reports showed increasing human activity, not less. Ships that should be trapped were moving freely. Colonies that should be starving were receiving supplies. The Dalthene representative brought their concerns to the Korthak speaker in private. Something is wrong, the Dalthene said. The humans are not collapsing. They are adapting. The speaker's bark creaked thoughtfully. Perhaps we have underestimated their determination. It's not just determination, the Dalthene replied, reviewing the tactical reports. Their civilian ships are outperforming our military vessels. Their pilots are doing things our best academy graduates say are impossible. What else have we underestimated about them? The speaker had no answer. But deep in his ancient mind, a seed of doubt began to grow. The blockade was failing, and the Virexians didn't even realize it yet. Part 4. The Council's Aritha. Virexian armada emerged from jump space at the edge of the Sol system like a swarm of metal predators. 500 warships arranged in perfect formation, their weapons charged and shields at maximum. Admiral Kreshner stood on the bridge of the inevitable justice, confident that this would be over within hours. "Deploy forward scanners," he ordered. "Locate the human fleet." The tactical displays lit up, showing ... nothing. No massed human forces. No defensive formations. Just empty space and the usual civilian traffic around the inner planets. "Sir, we're detecting scattered contacts. Individual ships, small groups. No coordinated defense." Kreshner's confidence wavered slightly. This wasn't how a species defended their home system. "Are they surrendering?" "No, sir. They single quotes, moving. All different directions. No pattern we can identify?" Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched through quantum feeds. The Korthax speaker observed from his meditation chamber. The Dalthene representative floated anxiously in their quarters. Dozens of species tuned in, expecting to witness humanity's defeat. "Human vessels. This is Admiral Kreshner of the Virexian Empire. You are ordered to stand down and prepare for occupation. Resistance is futile." The response came from Fleet Admiral Rodriguez, broadcasting from an unknown location. "Admiral Kreshner, we have no intention of surrendering. But we also have no intention of fighting your kind of war. What you're about to experience is something your ancient military doctrine never prepared you for." "Arrogant words from a defeated species," Kreshner replied. "All ships, advance. Destroy any vessel that does not immediately surrender." The Virexian fleet moved forward in their perfect formation, a wall of firepower that had never been defeated. They had studied human military history, the great fleet battles, the formation tactics, the conventional warfare. They were ready for anything humans could throw at them. They were not ready for what actually happened. The first sign of trouble came. When 3 Vexian destroyers on the fleet's edge suddenly lost power, their engines went dark, shields failed, and life support dropped to emergency levels. "What happened?" Kreshner demanded. "Unknown, sir. Something disrupted their power cores. Investigating, another 5 ships went dark, then 10 more. All around the fleet's perimeter, Virexian vessels were being disabled without a single shot being fired. It's some kind of focused electromagnetic pulse," the chief engineer reported frantically. "But it's surgical. It's targeting specific components in our power systems. Deploy countermeasures. Rotate shield frequencies." But the attacks continued. Worse, human ships started appearing from nowhere, not from jump space, but from within the asteroid field, from behind moons, even from within the debris field of old satellites. They had been hiding in plain sight, using passive systems that made them invisible to Virexian sensors. In the cockpit of the fighter designated Lucky 7, pilot Marcus Chen led his squadron in a strike run that defied every rule of space combat. His squadron wasn't attacking the Virexian formation head-on. They were using hit-and-run tactics borrowed from ancient Earth naval warfare. Remember Marcus broadcast to his squadron, "The Virexians fight information. They expect enemies to face them directly. We're not going to do that." Lucky 7 dove toward a Virexian cruiser, fired a burst of missiles, then immediately broke off and disappeared behind a small asteroid. The Virexian cruiser's defensive systems tracked the attack vector, preparing for a sustained assault, but Marcus was already somewhere else, hitting a different ship from a different angle, across the battlefield. Hundreds of human fighters were doing the same thing. The Virexians had superior firepower, but they couldn't land a hit on enemies who refused to stay still long enough to target. Kreshner shouted. "They're not following any military doctrine." His tactical officer looked up from the displays, scales pale with stress. "Sir, they're not trying to destroy us. They're hurting us." "What?" "Look at the pattern. Every attack, every feint, they're pushing our fleet into a specific region of space. Grid section Delta 7. Kreshner pulled up the navigation charts. Delta 7 was empty space. Nothing special about it. Why would they? He never finished the question. The trap sprang shut. Every human ship in the battle suddenly fired their weapons at the same instant. But they weren't aiming at the Vrexian fleet. They were targeting specific points in empty space around the fleet, creating a pattern that made no immediate sense until the energy signatures from all those weapons intersected. Dr. Kenji Yamamoto had discovered something interesting about Vrexian weapons technology. When multiple energy signatures of specific frequencies intersected in exactly the right pattern, they created a cascade effect. Not an explosion, something more subtle. A resonance that disrupted electronic systems in a massive radius. The Vrexians had never noticed this weakness because it required precise coordination between multiple sources. It required knowing exact positions, exact timing, and exact energy outputs. It required mathematics and coordination that no other species had demonstrated, but humans had been practicing this exact type of coordinated strike in simulations for months. Half the Vrexian fleet went dark simultaneously. On the council feeds, representatives watched in stunned silence. The mighty Vrexian armada, the force that had maintained galactic order for centuries, been crippled without the loss of a single human ship. What did they do? The Korthak speaker whispered. The Dalthan representative had been studying the tactical data. They turned the Vrexians' own weapons against them. They used mathematics and coordination. They fought with their minds, not just their weapons. Admiral Kreshner stared at his darkened displays in disbelief. His flagship still had power, but more than half his fleet was drifting helplessly. The battle was over, and it had barely begun. Then something happened that shocked him even more. The human ships didn't press their advantage. They didn't destroy the crippled vessels. Instead, Admiral Rodriguez's voice came over all channels. Admiral Kreshner, we're transmitting emergency power protocols to your disabled ships. Your crews are not in danger. We're also sending medical shuttles to any vessel that needs assistance. Why? Kreshner asked, genuinely confused. We came to destroy you. We know. But we didn't want war. We never did. We just wanted you to understand that Earth deserves respect. Not because we can destroy you, but because we choose not to, Rodriguez continued. Her words broadcast across every council channel in the galaxy. To the Galactic Council, you voted to isolate us, to disarm us, to treat us as criminals. You did this based on lies. We could have revealed those lies earlier, but words wouldn't have convinced you. You needed to see what humanity really is. She paused, letting her words sink in. We're not warriors seeking conquest. We're not thieves stealing your technology. We're survivors who've learned to adapt, to innovate, and to protect what's ours. We disabled your fleet because we could, but we're offering aid because that's who we are. Judge us by our actions, not your assumptions. In the council chambers, chaos erupted. The Vrexian representatives were shouting denials. The minor species were demanding investigations. The Korthak speaker sat in silence, his ancient mind processing what he had witnessed. The Dalthan representative approached the speaker's platform. Through wisdom, we must address this. The Vrexians lied to us. The humans defeated them with tactics we've never seen. Everything we thought we knew was wrong. The speaker's bark creaked as he stood slowly. Summon the full council, he said quietly. It is time for truth, even if it is painful. On his disabled flagship, Admiral Kreshner watched as human medical shuttles arrived to help his crew. He had spent 50 years in the Vrexian military. He had fought in dozens of campaigns. He understood honor, duty, and the rules of war, but he had never encountered an enemy who defeated him, then offered to help him. For the first time in his life, Admiral Kreshner questioned everything he believed about humanity and about his own empire. The battle was over, but the real war, the war for the future of the galactic order, was just beginning. Part 5. The final vote, the Galactic Council chamber, had never been so crowded. Every species sent their full delegation. The floating platforms were packed with observers. This session would determine not just Earth's fate, but the future of the Council itself. Ambassador Chen Wei entered the chamber. But this time she was not alone. Behind her walked representatives from 15 minor species, the Yinari, Dalthine, the Cortesh, and others who had lived for centuries under the shadow of more powerful civilizations. They formed a line beside Chen, a silent declaration that Earth was no longer isolated. High Chancellor Zexler stood on his platform, his metallic scales dull with shame. His fleet had been defeated. His empire's lies had been exposed, but he was not ready to surrender power without a fight. This council was deceived, Zexler began, attempting to control the narrative. Rogue elements within our intelligence services fabricated evidence without authorization. This was not official Vrexian policy. We apologize for this error and withdraw all sanctions against Earth. Error. Chen's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Let's be clear about what happened. Your empire tried to eliminate a competitor through legal manipulation. When that failed, you tried military force. The only error was that you failed. You dare? I dare because I have the evidence, the witnesses, and the moral authority of having defeated your fleet without destroying it. Chen gestured, and holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber. These are communications spanning 30 years. Vrexian intelligence, identifying emerging threats, not military threats, but economic ones. Species whose technology might compete with yours. Look at the pattern. The display showed case after case of species accused of violations, sanctioned by the Council, and eventually absorbed into Vrexian economic influence. The pattern was damning. The Korthak speaker observed it all with ancient, sad eyes. His species had founded the Council 10,000 years ago with noble intentions. Somehow, over millennia, justice had been replaced by politics and power. Ambassador Chen, the speaker's voice silenced the growing arguments. What is it that you want? Chen looked at the elderly being who had led the council longer than human civilization had existed. She saw not an enemy, but someone who had perhaps realized his creation had been corrupted. Right. I want justice, Chen said simply. Not revenge, not domination, justice. Real justice that applies equally to all species. Whether they've been in space for 10,000 years or 200, impossible, a Vrexian delegate shouted. The council requires leadership from experienced species. Younger races lack the wisdom to what? The Yinari representative, Felkor, stepped forward. To make good decisions? Our species has been asking for trade route protection for 50 years. The Vrexians always promised to help, but somehow our requests never got priority. Then we watched human ships, civilian freighters navigate routes you said were impossible. Maybe wisdom isn't about age. Maybe it's about willingness to try new approaches. More minor species representatives spoke up, sharing similar stories of being ignored, dismissed, or marginalized. The chamber erupted in voices that had been silent for too long. The Korthak speaker raised his hand. Silence gradually returned. I have led this council for 3 centuries, the speaker said. I believed I was maintaining order and stability. But perhaps I confused stability with stagnation. Perhaps I confused order with the comfort of the powerful. He turned to Chen. What reforms do you propose? Chen took a breath. This was the moment everything had been leading toward. First, transparent evidence requirements for sanctions. No species can be punished based on classified intelligence. All accusations must be public and verifiable. Second, council decisions require majority approval from 3 tiers: major species, minor species, and new members. No single group can dominate. Third, a review board with rotating membership to investigate past council decisions and recommend corrections. This would fundamentally change how the council operates, Zextar protested. Yes. It would, Chen agreed. It would make the council actually fair. The Dalthine representative floated to the center. I formally support these reforms. I also propose that the current leadership step down and new elections be held within 1 standard year. The chamber erupted again. Some species supported the proposal immediately. Others, particularly those who had benefited from the old system, opposed it vigorously. The Korthak speaker watched it all with an expression of deep thought. Finally, he spoke. I will support these reforms, he announced, and I will step down as speaker immediately. Shocked silence fell over the chamber. Your wisdom, someone began. My wisdom, the speaker interrupted gently, is in recognizing when change is necessary. We judged humanity by their age as a species, not their capability. We saw their short lifespans and assumed short vision. But they demonstrated something we had forgotten, that fresh perspectives have value, that adaptability matters as much as experience, that courage can come from facing challenges, not just from existing for millennia. He turned to Chen. You defeated a superior force through coordination, innovation, and tactics that our ancient military doctrines never imagined. Then you showed mercy when victory would have been easier. You demonstrated exactly the values this council was founded to represent. The speaker descended from his platform for the first time in living memory, his aged form moving slowly. Vote for reform. I vote for transparency. I vote for a council that serves all species equally. And I vote to accept Earth as a full member with all rights and responsibilities. The voting began. It was contentious, with heated debates lasting hours. But slowly, the balance tipped. Minor species voted overwhelmingly for reform. Many major species, impressed by Earth's demonstration and ashamed of Vrexian deception, joined them. Even some Vrexian delegates, horrified by their empire's actions, voted for change. The reforms passed with a clear majority. After the vote, as delegates filed out, the Korthak speaker approached Chen privately. Despite his age, his eyes were sharp. A question, if I may, he said. The battle in Sol System. You knew the Vrexians would come. You prepared for it? You could have struck first, hit their staging areas before they launched. Why didn't you? Chen was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Because we wanted you to see what humanity really is. Not warriors seeking conquest, but survivors willing to defend ourselves. Not thieves stealing technology, but innovators combining ideas in new ways. If we had struck first, we would have been the aggressors. By waiting, by disabling your fleet without destroying it, by offering aid to those who came to destroy us, we showed you who we are. You gambled with your entire species' survival to make a point. You gambled that truth would matter more than power, that given a clear choice, enough species would choose justice over convenience. We were right. The speaker's bark creaked in what might have been a smile. You underestimated nothing about us. You knew some would see wisdom in your approach. You knew others would be too invested in the old system. You calculated the exact amount of force needed to prove your point without creating enemies. We studied every species in the council, Chen admitted. We learned how you think, how you decide, what you value. That's what humans do. We adapt to our environment. Right now, our environment is galactic politics, so we adapted. Frightening, the speaker said softly, and impressive. Your species will either save this council or destroy it. We'll try very hard to do the first one, Chen said. But we'll need help from species like yours, species with wisdom and experience who are willing to listen to new ideas. You have it, the speaker promised. Though I may no longer lead, I will support these reforms. My species has much to learn from yours. Weeks later, the Vrexian High Council convened in private. High Chancellor Zexler faced charges of unauthorized military action and falsifying evidence. His fate would be decided by his own people. Admiral Kreshner, surprisingly, testified against him. The experience of being defeated and then aided by humans had changed the old admiral's perspective. He spoke of honor, of the difference between strength and bullying, of the respect he now held for an enemy who fought with restraint. The council reforms went into effect gradually. A review board began examining centuries of decisions. Some old judgments were overturned. Some species received apologies and reparations. The council was changing, slowly but genuinely. Earth established diplomatic relations with dozens of species. Trade agreements were signed. Technology exchanges happened on fair terms. Humanity's adaptability and innovation became assets in cooperation, rather than threats to be suppressed. But Chen never forgot what it had taken to reach this point. The months of blockade, the lives lost, the desperate struggle. She kept a small memorial in her quarters with names of every human who had died during the conflict: supply runners, fighter pilots, colonists who ran out of medicine. One evening, Marcus Chen, the fighter pilot who had helped run the blockade and then fought in the battle, visited his mother in her diplomatic quarters. "Was it worth it?" he asked, looking at the memorial wall. Chen was quiet for a long moment. "That's not for me to decide. History will judge whether what we did mattered, whether the reforms hold, whether the council truly changes, or just wears a new mask over the same old power structure. What do you think?" "I think we proved something important, that younger species deserve respect, that adaptability can triumph over ancient strength, that justice matters more than convenience." She touched the memorial wall gently. "These people didn't die defeating the Vrexians. They died proving Earth's right to exist as equals among the stars." Marcus nodded slowly. "The Academy wants me to teach a course on the battle. They're calling it asymmetric warfare, the soul system defense. What will you tell them?" "The truth. That we won because we fought smarter, not harder. That we turned our weaknesses into strengths. That we succeeded because we refused to fight their war on their terms." He paused. "And that we showed mercy because that's what separates us from bullies." Chen smiled at her son. "That's exactly the lesson they need to learn." Across the galaxy, the Vrexians' attempted subjugation of Earth became a case study in strategic failure. Military academies taught it as an example of overconfidence and cultural blindness. Diplomatic schools used it to demonstrate the importance of understanding adversaries rather than underestimating them. The Galactic Council's final vote had been meant to condemn Earth to isolation and defeat. Instead, it had become the last vote of an old, corrupt system before reform began. The vote that truly mattered had come after, when species chose justice over convenience, transparency over secrecy, equality over hierarchy. Earth had not sought to overthrow the Council. They had simply refused to accept injustice and proven that adaptability, innovation, and moral courage could triumph over ancient power, and that lesson would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. The humans had been underestimated. They had been judged by assumptions rather than evidence. They had been pushed into a corner and expected to surrender instead. They had changed everything, and they had done it by being exactly what they had always been: survivors who refused to give up, innovators who found new solutions to old problems, and people who believed that justice was worth fighting for. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.